The Pokemon singles market is falling rapidly, and it makes you wonder, are we finally at the bottom of the market? Though before I answer that question, I'm actually gifting this Pikachu from Crown Zenith. Now, to know if you won this card, if I do reply to your comment and I add this magical Terapagos emoji, then this beautiful secret rare is coming your way. And hey, if you are a first time watcher, welcome to the channel. My name's Phil and I simplify the world of Pokemon collectibles. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Though the market seems to be cooling off quite rapidly, though a question I'm getting a lot of right now, whether it's on this channel or on my Discord, is, hey Phil, are we at the bottom of the market? And I think collectors are getting far more anxious relating to whether or not now is a good time to buy Pokemon cards, or if they're going to continue to tumble down, though that's why we actually need to have a deep dive into the market and discuss a few things. So here we are on Paradox Rift, the Groudon. So you can see in the last 3 months, this card was selling for 102 US. Right now, it's gone down to around 74 US. You can see, if we pull that into the month graph, you can see this very tiny little kind of recovery. Nowhere near a bounce back, but you can see that the Groudon has decided, hey, around 70 bucks, that's about as low as I'm gonna go at this stage. Now, of course, this is very early days with what's happening. The summer period in US and Europe is here. That means traditionally when these things happen, a lot of people get a little bit weary and say, hey, is it gonna be actually that good? A lot of people now are wondering the card's gonna be going down in price or continuing to dip. I think it's a very awkward time to be involved in the Pokemon TCG scene at the moment. So many people ripping packs, but we have a weird thing going on as well. Yes, more packs are wanting to be opened. People want to rip them. But are singles as desired as they once were? I think we're entering a very weird transitional period. If singles are not as desired as sealed product, is that a sustainable approach? But you know, when a lot of people do rip and ships right now, right? So the sealed product is very desired because a lot of people want it. There's more utility for it. But here's the thing. If singles become less and less and less desired, the long-term approach of sealed product doesn't really work that well. In fact, sealed product will lose a lot of its charm because if the only reason is to open it, but you actually pull nothing that has any sort of value, that's where we could enter a weird crossroad. Now, I know there is a huge amount of debate whether, you know, if you're a collector, you shouldn't care about the price. But the problem is with the price that Pokemon packs and sealed product are at the moment, I think a lot of people can't stomach it when, you know, they open something and they've effectively just lost money for the sake of it, right? So I think that we're going through a weird period at the moment. Now, also, sealed products are still quite challenging to find. So we have this weird difference where singles are dipping, but sealed is still very hard to acquire. However, if you do want to be notified when new sealed products drop, that does bring me to today's video sponsor, which is PokeNotify. So PokeNotify is a paid Discord service which alerts its users the moment a reprint or restock is announced. So for example, with Destined Rivals restocking and Prismatic Evolutions getting restocks, you'll get immediately notified the moment it's available at specific retailers. Now, what's cool is that PokeNotify covers a huge amount of stores worldwide, and to get the best out of the server, it's important you take the time to set up your notification preferences to get accurate notifications. Now, what's cool, there is actually a 3-day free trial available. However, if you do use my code, you'll get 25% off your first month. You can find all the details within the video's description. Thanks to PokeNotify for being today's sponsor. Now let's get back into the video. Moving on to the Gholdengo special illustration rare from Prismatic Evolutions. This one's pretty interesting to me. You can see this one found a high point in the market for 108 US. Currently selling for $93. I do think this one has far more room to continue going down. Reason being, yes, Gholdengo is a cool Pokemon, but it's nowhere near as desired as a lot of the other special illustration rares within Prismatic Evolutions. So we're going through a period of change. Big things are kind of shifting. Prismatic Evolutions has some of the hardest pull rates for special illustration rares. Though here's the thing, there's 32 special illustration rares within Prismatic Evolutions. The chance to pull a specific special illustration rare is ridiculously difficult. Though to get a special illustration rare in general, meaning if you just wanted any card within the set that's an SIR, that's when the odds are not as difficult as they seem. But here's the problem. Not many people want the Gholdengo. Not many people want the Iron Hands. Not many people want the Iron Crown. There are your more dedicated collectors and fans that do like those cards. But really, when people buy Prismatic Evolutions, what do they want? They want the Umbreon, they want the Sylveon, they want the Espeon, they want the Roaring Moon. These are the cards people want from Prismatic Evolutions. It's pretty much evolutions in the top positions. Everything else comes after that, and I think we're gonna see some things play out. I do think with the amount Prismatic Evolutions is getting printed at the moment, there is so much stock coming on. I know it's hard to get the product because so many people love it, but I do believe that we may get a scenario, and I've always been pretty confident about this, the Pokemon is really gonna up the demands for Prismatic Evolutions. More stock's gonna come on the market, and I do imagine that some of these cards like the Gholdengo, like Iron Hands, like Iron Crown from Prismatic Evolutions, they may experience a market pullback because more and more are coming on the market, less desire to collect them because they are not ace Pokemon or they're not the most desired cards from the set. Moving on to the Pikachu Special Illustration Rare. Yes, I cover this card in particular quite a fair bit. The reason why I cover it is because the market pullback of this card is wild. Now, there's a few things that, before I go into the prices of this card, there's a few things about this card I need to cover off. Firstly, the artwork to me, while I personally like the card, I don't think that it actually has that wild of a mainstream appeal like the Greninja Special Illustration Rare or the Magikarp Illustration Rare. I think these artworks are far more unique. I think the Bubble Mew is far more unique. When I look at this Pikachu, it is kind of more desired because it is a Pikachu SIR, more so than the artwork with its broad appeal. I do think the market pullback of this card is something that we all need to study. You can see selling for $458 at the start of March. Right now it's selling at $287. Whether or not we're at the bottom of this card, it is unlikely because the Surging Sparks reprints are still coming on the market. So if a lot of people are looking at this card and they're not that sold on it, maybe there is a chance it can continue to come down. Though here's the thing, right? This card is 1 in 960 packs to pull. It has some of the most difficult pull rates out of any card from the Scarlet and Violet era. So that is also something we need to consider. I do think that the Greninja SIR is far cooler of an artwork than the Pikachu. I know when I compare it to the Bubble Mew versus the Greninja SIR, you know, this one is always lagging behind those. I personally am going to be really tracking this card as the months go on because I'm personally curious to see what happened with this card because when it kind of went really high in price, I'm talking about right here, like you can see that 485 mark in January. That's when Prismatic Evolutions released. Everyone was like, whoa, is this card going to even go higher? Is it like, where is it going to go? I was always looking at that and I thought the artwork doesn't really deserve that price point. That was my first kind of reaction when I saw that. I thought, yes, it's rare, yes, it's Pikachu, but I don't think the artwork is that much of a standout. The Greninja SIR always made sense to me because I think the artwork is phenomenal. The Bubble Mew made sense to me because the artwork is unique and phenomenal. Same with Moonbryon. This one, I always felt like it's more just getting hyped up and the hype just breeds hype and it's just getting overhyped. I never felt that the 485 was a real justified price. So we can see right now that the market is selling it for around 287. And I do think that that is getting closer to what I kind of feel that the right price for this card is. But you know, that's my opinion, right? The market decides everything. I also think that the Umbreon from Prismatic Evolutions is crazy overvalued. I don't think that the artwork deserves that price point, but of course, I'm not the market. The market decides price points of all these cards. Moving on to the Magikarp Illustration Rare from Paldea Evolved. Very, very unique card. Was once the top chase card of the Scarlet and Violet era, and definitely it's not even in the top 10 most expensive cards of the Scarlet and Violet era because of what Prismatic Evolutions did with, you know, card prices in general. You can see this card in March was selling for $278. That was its high point in the market, which was absurd, right? That's such a high price point for an illustration rare. It's actually so iconic that it even got to that price point. Really cool to see that. You can see right now selling for 190 US. Now you might be wondering, hey, why did a Magikarp even get to that crazy price point? The reason why is because you can probably see a lot of similarities to this card and Giratina V. Well, they're from the same artist, Shinji Kanda. Shinji Kanda has a very recognizable art style. Right now, Shinji Kanda has almost developed a cult-like following for how much Pokemon collectors love his artworks. Another very iconic Shinji Kanda artwork is the Roaring Moon from Prismatic Evolutions. You can probably see when they're all next to each other how distinct they are and how recognizable they are, and you probably get a good feel of his artistic style. So you can see that's the reason why the Magikarp went to such high price points, but then again, the artwork is pretty cool as well. Like, let's not deny that, right? I do think the fact that we are getting more Paldea Evolved onto the market, maybe that this card could continue to come down. Don't forget, it is an illustration rare. Even at $195, it's still by far the most expensive illustration rare on the market. Nothing really competes with it. Don't forget, like I always say, more and more packs are being opened right now. That means sealed is desired because it has utility, but there's only so many collectors that can actually pay 200 US for a chase card, right? What happens if there's more on the market, but not enough people going to be paying those prices? The price has to come down. Moving on to the Greninja Special Illustration Rare. Personally, one of my favorite cards from the Scarlet and Violet era. Really rate the artwork. Has very unique style. Really stands out when you see this artwork. You can see this card at the end of February was selling for 408 US. Huge price point. As you can see right now, we have the summer period that's happening in US and Europe, and you also have Twilight Masquerade getting more product onto the market. You can see that the price in the last 3 months has tumbled down to $295. Not as crazy as the Pikachu, which lost 200 US off its high point, but you can see that it's right now selling for 295 US, lost $100 off its high point. If we pull this into the year graph, you can see right now that this Greninja is probably at the best price point since around September, October. So it definitely has had a pretty big pullback. Don't forget that this card is very difficult to get as a PSA 10, so maybe the PSA 10 will be the better option, but who knows where this card's gonna go in the future. So while we're on Twilight Masquerade, we also have the Eevee illustration rare, and this is what I mean, right? The Magikarp illustration rare is still selling for 190 bucks. You can see that Eevee is definitely going through a pretty big price drop. The Eevee illustration rare was selling for around $88 at the start of March. Check this out, right now selling for $58. Huge percentage decrease from its high point, and you can see, even though it is a unique artwork, even though people love Eevee, I think it's been overshadowed a lot by Prismatic Evolutions, Eeveelutions, but also because Twilight Masquerade is getting more product on the market, I think a lot of people are now piecing together what's going to actually happen for the future of a lot of these cards. People don't want to be overpaying right now. I don't want to be overpaying right now. Who wants to pay for a Pokemon card and it drops so much in price? So right now, I think a lot of people are going to be strategic, but don't forget, we also will reach a bottom of the market. And timing the bottom is not the best decision, but you have to also be prepared. Probably when we get to the middle or more towards the end of the summer period, you're going to see a market reversal, because that's usually what happens. If it kind of behaves how it always does, that's what we can kind of expect. But where will these go? How low can they go? Are people getting a little bit sick of these cards? Are too many Pokemon cards now on the market? We're all going to see what's happening. Don't forget, Pokemon cards are being opened at an accelerated rate right now. Maybe we're experiencing a market price readjustment. One of the more interesting ones is the hyper rare Pikachu from Surging Sparks. You can see this card was selling for 200 US in December. Right now selling for $64. These are the rarest cards to pull in Surging Sparks. So technically this hyper rare gold Pikachu is far more rare to pull than the special illustration rare Pikachu, but of course the SIR has more desirability. And you can see selling at 64 US, that is looking like it's going lower and lower. Of course, don't forget, I'm now educating you on that, but a lot of people who just collect for the fun don't know that. A lot of people who are casuals or just enter the hobby, they want the SIRs. They don't care if a card's got harder pull rates. What they care about is it a special illustration rare. So if you are investing in collectibles, you do need to tailor your purchases to what market desirability is. And market desirability is, if it's a special illustration rare, people just think, oh, it's a SIR. But you know, a lot of people that collect know that these cards are actually the rarest cards in Surging Sparks. Moving on to another interesting one is the Terapagos from Stellar Crown. You can see, I'm going to pull this into the year graph. You can see this card's high point in the market when it released, the pre-release price point was 151 US. Now, what's wild about this is Terapagos was going to be a real big winner for the Pokemon franchise. You know, it released in the Gen 9 DLCs, and a lot of people thought Terapagos was going to probably perform better than it did. I don't think the adoption rate of Terapagos as a crazy, mythical, amazing Pokemon has been that strong, and I think it's kind of failed in its own way outside of the TCG. But you can see right now, selling for 45 US. I think if you ask me any card that's pretty much getting to its lowest point in the market, I would say it is this Terapagos. I think the artwork is really awesome, but you know, selling at $45, that is pretty good for a special illustration rare and what was going to be the top chase card of Stellar Crown. Stellar Crown isn't that desired of a set. It's a very small set as well. Maybe we are approaching the bottom for some particular cards, but some cards still have a way to go. Now, moving on to the Sword and Shield era cards. Now, these are just so wildly expensive, but you can see in the last 3 months, some of the price reductions have been wild. Also, if you are wondering how to stay up to date with all the Pokemon news, feel free to join my channel's Discord. You'll also be able to engage with the Pokemon community and even be first in line to hear about news and events. The Discord invite is in the video's description. Look at this one, man. The Giratina V selling for 709 US at the end of February. Right now selling for $540. huge price reduction for a very rare card. And don't forget, the other cards make more sense why they're going down in price because more stock is coming on the market, right? When you can see the Greninja SIR and it's going down in price, but we've got more Twilight Masquerade coming on the market. When we look at the Giratina V, hey, Lost Origin is done and dusted, dude. We're not getting any more Lost Origin onto the market. So it's really interesting to see it coming down in price. Same thing when we look at the Lugia V from Silver Tempest, pretty much the only desired card from that set. You can see this card was selling for $305 at the end of February, right now selling for $271. No more Silver Tempest stock is coming in the market, but it's still having a market pullback. And of course, when we look at the Gengar VMAX as well, you can see top of the market was around 721 US at the start of March. You can see right now that the Gengar is selling for $578. That is a very, very significant market pullback. What's even more interesting about this is that the set that this card is from, Fusion Strike, is going up in price. The prices of Fusion Strike are going bananas, so you're having this very weird polarity happening. If we pull this Gengar into the year graph, you can see that it was selling in September for around 310 US, found a market high of around that $740, and right now selling for $576. I think the Pokemon market is in a very weird position. I think a lot of people are now questioning what's going to actually happen with Pokemon cards. But don't forget, we also have Megas on the way, right? Pokemon Legends EA, the video games coming out. More and more people are going to be entering the hobby because if the video games grow, so I do think right now with where the video games are heading, with where Pokemon TCG is heading and the Mega Evolution cards that we're about to have, I think the TCG is going to be a really interesting ride. I think right now is a good time to follow the market to see what eventually happens. Though in saying that, a lot is changing at the moment, and I myself have also been introducing a few different changes in my life. For example, one of the big changes is that I've actually launched a second YouTube channel where I cover topics relating to Pokemon's history, Pokemon's lore, and Pokemon game mechanics. For example, one of the videos I uncover is what the rarest Pokemon is in each video game, excluding events and mythical Pokemon. You can actually see that video in this playlist appearing right here. Within this video that's appearing on screen, I go over the rarest Pokemon, and this is a new introduction into my channel, Philip's Trick Room. If you love Pokemon video games and would love to see my next adventure, feel free to click that video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you there.